So if you're like me and you enjoy playing MMOs or MOBAs, you probably already know that those type of games become increasingly easier to play when you learn that key binding is your best friend. Like legit best friend, because well, you play MMOs and MOBAs. And you know, I'm not saying this is from experience or anything, but we all know you have over a year in game time since 2004. Now that I think about that, I've definitely spent way too much time playing WoW. Anyway, this right here, this is the Age Logitech G602. This guy right here came out in 2013, and it gives you the ability to put your thumb in control of 6 different keybinds while also being wireless. Is this wireless mouse worth taking a look at in 2020? Let's find out. What's going on, guys? I'm Brian, and today we're taking a look at another Logitech mouse, the G602. This guy right here comes in at just under $40, and as always, you can check out the description box below for any related links. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing for more tech content just like this, and feel free to like this video if you end up enjoying it. Now, in the box, you will find the mouse and extension cable so that you can place your USB dongle wherever you see fit, the USB dongle, as well as some basic documentation. The mouse also comes with 2 AA batteries, but these will already be installed in the mouse, and all you'll have to do is actually just pull one of those like pull tabs, and then you'll be good to go. The mouse will work for you. Alright, so the G602 has a very nice ergonomic design. The sides and back have this like really nice smooth texture on it, and it really makes the mouse really super comfortable to use. One quick note on this is that the texture itself is kind of slick. So although it feels great in the hand, it could be hard to grip in heated moments. Especially if you have like sweaty hands. I kind of get sweaty hands sometimes when I'm playing games. So if you get those, you know, it's kind of hard to grip if you're trying to move the mouse really quickly. So that's a heads up for that. The mouse wheel is, well, I hate it. To put it simply, I do not like this mouse wheel at all. It has no texture on it, and it has no really good feedback while you scroll it. And my finger also seems to slip while I'm using it. But the actual click itself, it's all right. It's not too bad, and you know, at least it's not a complete failure of a wheel. On the bottom of the mouse, you're gonna have 2 things worth mentioning. The first one is gonna be that it has 6 mouse feet that are very, 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 very well placed, and it allows the mouse to just absolutely glide while you're using it. I wish every single mouse on the market used this design for the mouse feet. It's just absolutely perfect. And as we'll talk about in a few minutes, this is a heavier mouse, and so having these mouse feet placed the way they are, it really helps a ton when you're using the mouse. Secondly, you're going to have the battery chamber on the bottom. This chamber has a spot for 2 AA batteries as well as for your USB dongle. As I've said a lot in my wireless mouse reviews, having a spot for the USB dongle is absolutely critical in my opinion. And if it doesn't have it, it makes me very, very, very sad. But this one does, so it makes me very, very, very happy. Now, as I just mentioned, this mouse is pretty hefty, weighing in at 152 grams with both batteries installed, or 120 grams with just one installed. This is definitely, most definitely, the heaviest mouse that I've personally ever tested. And before you go in the comments and ask the question, yes, I gave you both weights because you can use this mouse with just one battery, which is a pretty, you know, cool feature, because if you don't like the weight and you want to use the one battery, it's awesome. As for the dimensions, the G602 comes in at 133 millimeters long, 83 millimeters wide, and then 44 millimeters tall. And these dimensions are pretty much perfect for most hand sizes. But I could see, if you have like really large hands, I could see your thumb getting crowded over here with all these you know, programmable buttons here. As for the build quality, this mouse is built like a freaking tank. This thing feels super sturdy and should be able to handle most people's wear and tear with absolute ease. Moving on from the build quality, this mouse is packed full of great features. First off, it uses the Logitech Delta Zero sensor. The sensor is older and only allows DPIs of up to 2500, but the performance of it, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, is actually pretty killer for, you know, especially for it being as old as it is. This mouse also has a switch in the middle of the mouse that allows you to switch between endurance mode and performance mode. In endurance mode, your pulling rate is going to be cut down to 125 hertz, and it'll be locked there. And but the benefit of doing that is that it'll dramatically increase your battery life. On the flip side, in the performance mode, your pulling rate is unlocked and by default is set to 500 hertz. Since the pulling rate is unlocked, you are able to decrease it to 250 hertz or 125 hertz if you so choose. But, you know, if you're having it in the performance mode, I really don't see a reason why you would, you know, decrease your pulling rate, because that's just going to decrease like your performance. As I briefly mentioned earlier, this mouse also has the option of using either 1 or 2 AA batteries. With both batteries installed, you can expect 250 hours of battery life when you're in the performance mode, which is crazy. But what's even more crazy is that if you turn it to endurance mode, you can expect 1,440 hours of battery life. I mean, it's absolutely nuts that you can get that kind of battery life in here. Now, if you decide you only want one battery because having two in there is too heavy for you, you're just expecting to cut, you know, the 1440 and the 250 in half if you're in performance mode or if you're in endurance mode. Either case, like I just said, the battery life is awesome for this mouse. Moving on, the mouse also has 11 programmable buttons. You have your standard left, right, and then middle click buttons. You then have 2 buttons that are going to be attached to your left click button. And then you have 6 that are going to be right above your thumb. And quite honestly, the only button on this entire mouse I don't really like is the G6 button, which is like right here. And I'll have a close up for you guys. But this is the button that is located closest to your wrist on the bottom row of the 6 buttons above your thumb. Now, the reason why I don't like it is because it's kind of hard to press. And I really think that if you have larger hands, this button basically becomes unusable for you. I personally use it for like a DPI shift button for like games such as CSGO, and it works fine. But it's hard to use, you know, in other scenarios. The remaining buttons feel really solid and are all like perfectly placed in my opinion. They pop out like just enough in my opinion. And I really like the mouse's button layout, especially for like MMOs. For any of you who are curious about a sound test, here you guys go. As you can probably hear, these buttons are nice and crisp, and yeah, Logitech knew what they were doing when they made this mouse back in 2013. That's all I can really say. All right, and so how does this mouse actually perform? Which is probably the most important question when it comes to a gaming mouse, right? Well, as I briefly mentioned before, this mouse is a pretty solid performer. I did all my gaming tests on the performance mode, so I didn't use the endurance mode because the performance mode is made for games. And then I also used both batteries installed. And across the board, I had no problems with connectivity, and all my button clicks were registered very quickly. The mouse, for me, was very quick and very snappy. Now, when we get into specifics for games such as World of Warcraft or League of Legends, I love this thing. This thing was absolutely amazing. I loved having the extra buttons above my thumb while playing WoW, and it was just a great experience. On the other side, though, this mouse wasn't too bad for games such as like CSGO or, you know, other first-person shooters. I'm personally, if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm not a big, you know, fan of first-person shooters. It's just not me. I don't, you know, I'm not big into them, right? But for like the occasional CSGO match, just kind of just jumping into some shooters here and there, you know, just playing them once in a while, this mouse did, you know, perfectly fine. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, it was fine. All right, so on to the software, and for this mouse, you can actually choose 2 different programs. You can use the older Logitech gaming software that so many people love. Or you can use the newer Logitech G Hub, which I have always liked with the, you know, with the mice I've used. But I've heard a lot of people complain about using it, and I'm kind of realizing why. So my experience using the G602 with the G Hub software was just awful, completely 100% awful. And this is coming from someone who likes the G Hub software. And I know that this is an older device, but if Logitech still sells it, and the mouse is still compatible with the software, because it is, when you open the software, this is detected. it should work just as well as if you have a newer device that was just recently released. And here are my issues so you guys know. So the G Hub software would not save profiles to the G602 onboard memory at all. No matter what I did, it wouldn't work. And what made it worse is that if you have the onboard memory mode off and you're using the software for your keybinds, the keybinds wouldn't always work. Sometimes they would, but I had multiple occasions where a random, button on here would just either just stop working or randomly go back to what the default key setting was. And honestly, in my opinion, G Hub is only usable with its mouse when you're using the onboard memory mode, which, as I just said, doesn't even really work on this mouse because you can't actually save profiles to the onboard memory with the G Hub software. So it's a pain all on its own because you would have to go through the Logitech gaming software to save the profile or to edit the keybinds on your mouse and then use the G Hub software onboard memory mode. Like, what? It makes no sense to me. Like, I don't know. It was a really frustrating moment for me for the G Hub software. Anyway, this leads me into kind of the Logitech gaming software, which worked a whole ton better with this particular mouse. It will allow you to change the button binds in onboard memory mode, and then it saves it right to your mouse, so you don't have to worry about that. And then when you're in software mode, if you do set keybinds and stuff to your mouse, it works, a lot better with this particular mouse than the G Hub software did. And so with that said, if you're going to get this particular mouse, make sure that you're using the Logitech gaming software rather than the G Hub software. It's unfortunate because I personally like the G Hub software look and what it, kind of how everything works. For my other Logitech devices I've tested, but for this guy right here, the G602, it just doesn't work very well. And now that leads us directly into the question, should you buy the Logitech G602? And the quick answer for me is yes. But let me explain for a second so you guys can understand if you're in the spot where I think you should buy it. The mouse comes in at under $40. It's wireless and it's super comfortable. Yes, it has its flaws like an underwhelming mouse wheel and it's pretty dang heavy. But if you can utilize those thumb buttons and you don't have a huge budget, I don't think you can really find a wireless mouse that gives you the performance and feature sets of this guy right here. Even in 2020, 7 years after it was originally released. If you ended up finding this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more tech content just like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.